Hey guys, this is Post-Production Pi. In this chapter, I want to talk to you guys about what are sidecar files or XMP files, as well as the differences between the DNG and the raw file formats. So let's first talk about sidecar files and what exactly is a sidecar file. You may have heard the term sidecar files. You may also have heard the term XMP files. The terms are actually synonymous. They're one and the same thing. A sidecar file basically is a file that's kept next to the original raw file that contains all of the information on the develop settings for that raw file. We previously talked about how in Lightroom, whenever you make changes to a raw file, those changes are only visible in the preview inside of Lightroom. Well, if you want those changes to be recognizable by other pieces of software that are using the raw format, like for example Photoshop or other pieces of third-party software, then you need to have XMP Sidecar files along with the original image that contains the developed settings, because developed settings cannot be saved into the raw file format. So we're going to show you guys just how this exactly works. I know that's probably a mouthful right there. So let's load up our tutorial catalog, just the same catalog that we've been using so far in our tutorials. And I'm going to go to right here. Alrighty. Okay. So in looking at this, I'm just going to pull up this image of this bird right now. It's just the very first image in the catalog. And what we're going to do is we're going to apply a few developed settings to it. And it really doesn't matter what you do to it. You can follow along or you can just apply your own. All I want you guys to do is be able to see a difference between the original file and the edited file. So this is with our developed settings. Here's the, whoops. So I keep hitting the wrong button. Here's the original file. So we can see there's a pretty clear difference between the two. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my library module. I'm going to right click here and hit show and explore, and we're going to open this raw file up in Photoshop by double clicking it. And it's just the 001 file that we're using, so I'm just going to double click this, and it's going to bring it up into Adobe Camera Raw inside of Photoshop. And check it out. It brings up the original file. It doesn't include those developed settings that we just applied in Lightroom. Okay, that is because there is no sidecar file attached to this image. So let me go back into Lightroom. And you guys may remember how to do this from the catalog settings tutorial that we did earlier. But when you want to turn on XMP file, when you want Lightroom to be able to write changes into XMP files, you're going to go to Edit, you're going to go to Catalog Settings, and then under the third tab, under Metadata, there's an option to automatically write changes into XMP. And it says, warning, changes made in Lightroom will not automatically be visible in other applications. That's because it's turned off right now. If I turn this on, automatically it's going to start writing any developed settings into XMP files. And let's see what that looks like. I'm going to hit OK. Let's make sure that it picked up on our developed settings. I'm just going to make a quick change to make sure it actually writes it into a sidecar file. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go back to Explorer. And we're going to go to our originals, and there we go. There is the XMP file that's attached right along with it. So why is it called a sidecar file? Because it goes right along the side of the original file. It's named the exact same name, except it's given the XMP extension, and that's why it's also called an XMP file. So either way, the terms are synonymous. And now check this out. If I were to open this file now in Photoshop, voila. It has all of our developed settings that we applied in Lightroom, and I can still work on the image as a raw image. We see just that it brought in our blacks, our brightness, our contrast, because that's the information that was contained in the XMP file. Alright guys, so that is how you turn on sidecars. Now keep in mind that the catalog settings are settings specific to each individual catalog. So just because you turn this on once doesn't mean that it's going to be writing XMP files into every single one of your catalogs. So you need to do it with each individual catalog you're working on. On a quick note, when is this actually useful? This is actually extremely useful when you're using maybe not Photoshop, but other pieces of third-party software that are able to you're able to basically bring in the raw files, and you want to bring in files as raws, but with the Lightroom changes. It's also very useful for, let's say, I know a lot of editing companies, instead of what they do is basically they get your images and they edit all those images in Lightroom or in Photoshop or whatever tool that they're using. They save out all the settings to those raw files in XMP and they give them back to you. And then all you do is you update all the files with the XMP, and there you go. All the developed settings that they created are brought into your Lightroom catalog. So hopefully you guys have a good idea of what sidecar files or XMP files are, as well as how to enable them and disable them in the catalog settings. So let's move on to the next video.